Hey all, welcome to Circular Tone. Excuse the buzz, the amp is on. I usually use NS2s, which is a noise gate, but in this case you want everything to run out. When you're using vintage Gibson 1959 pickups and electronics and wire and solder from back in the day, you know, you're not going to want to put a noise gate and get rid of those overtones. So this is just a response to the people who were disappointed that I played metal with the electronics that I had. So sorry about that. And let's see if I'll just play around with the tone and the volume and everything. So see how it sounds. Nice. Let's crank it a little bit. Train coming. I hope you can hear the overtones. What did I say about tone caps? Don't matter. Really hard to pick up with microphones. Okay, so that was the Epiphone P90 Special, $90 guitar, upgraded to the hilt with the most expensive parts that you can buy from any era. The Gibson 1959 Les Paul era of pickups and pots and wire and solder and all the rest of that good stuff back in the day. The Bumblebee caps, which you've probably heard made fun of. Now you hear them. The average person hasn't actually tried any of this. The reason that it gets scoffed at is because Gibson put out Bumblebee capacitors right now, which are fakes. They have really cheap capacitors inside a plastic shell, which looks like the old oil and paper or oil and foil capacitors from back in the day, and they sound nothing like them, I know from experience. So why do new Gibsons sound sterile compared to what you just heard? A lot of them now have the actual, they don't even have the regular harnesses anymore. You know, there's actually, it looks more like a circuit board in there, and the metal is different. You know, the solder is illegal now. You can't have lead solder. There's all sorts of little things in the chain. There's less copper in the wire. It's just cheap Chinese stranded wire that's inside these things these days. You probably saw me with the way I was playing. Like that was love. It was, to get that amount of range and that much volume for the subtle low gain things that I was doing. You know, it was a cranked Marshall Plexi, but then, you know, cleaned up. It's impossible to get that with modern pots and modern capacitors. It's not you know, you'll get there, but you won't get the excitement, you won't get the bloom. It'll just be muted, it'll be crispy, it'll be tight, you know. It won't be just the gloriousness that I can conjure out of these beats, because it's the best sound I've ever had. The guitar is a limitation. I worked very hard on it. I had to put new tuners on there. There's Rotomatics, there's a bone nut which I had to carve. Obviously the pickups were both changed. There's a 70s and a 59 pickup, P90, and the pots are all from 1959, and the wire and I think the switch is old, but it's not as old as the rest of the stuff, to be honest. It's got a pure tone jack. I did have the old Switchcraft, the 1959 Switchcraft, which is like ridiculously expensive, but the pure tone jack sounds better. It's a new design by a friend of mine called Dave Linsk. The original design is over 100 years old, so his has, instead of just one contact point, you know, where the barrel goes in for the ground and it's just rattling around in there. It's only the pressure of the cable that's leaning, the guitar cable, that's making it lean to one side, that connects you to ground. So how is that a good solid ground? If you can test a circuit and it will pass, but you still can have a partial ground, but it will pass a signal test, but the signal will be slightly degraded. So with this, when you have a partial ground, it can sound just a little bit, not staticky or anything. It cuts frequencies. It's just like a pipe full of water. You know, if you've got pure copper, pure silver, you know, that water's gonna fly through that thing. If it's corroded and if there's strands and if it's just going against each other and just like a haystack of wires going in there, because, you know, it just stops, it just shelves things. So it shelves your frequencies. It doesn't, having things like the pure tone jack, having things like the old wires and the evidence cables that I use, these are solid, actually solid copper going through these. It's not stranded at all, so that's why, you know, you get a lot of the overtones. It doesn't boost anything. What it does, it retains everything. If you use cheap cables, not cheap cables, just bad cables, because you can get good cheap cables. I'll do another video on that. It's all about retaining frequencies. But with the Gibson pots, with the Gibson caps, the old stuff, they are a lossy technology. Just like vinyl is lossless. You know, you're going to lose. It's going to be warmer, and it's going to be, I hate to say warmer. It's the treble is fine. It's not as pristine as digital, but the level that it goes to seems to be perfect for the human ear. The level that the bass, the I'm not going to say bloom again. The level of the lows is all just really nice, and it's just enough that that our hearing can appreciate it, and it rings true with us. That's what this. It's not mojo. It's literally broken equipment. The caps are leaking. The caps, they drift. It's not perfect. You're not going to put in a harness and sound like this. It's going to sound slightly different, but it's still going to sound beautiful if it hasn't leaked too much. So when people say, oh, it's unicorn tears and it's mojo and it's magic pixies and things, it's not. It's science. So that's what drives me mad about some people who think that, oh, just because it passes on a multimeter, that means it's the same. No, it's not. I mean, are the magnets the same? No. Is the metal slag that they use the same? No. You know, it is some of its parts. And unfortunately, these parts are so expensive, and they're so, you get idiots, because, you know, might have heard a few scratches and glitches and things like that. People will just throw them out just because of that one little thing. And when the band's playing, you can't hear that. You know, if you're playing live is the only time it matters. You know, and to be honest, most of my glitches were, I'm actually tightening it now, my glitches were more to do with these aren't fastened down properly yet. So when I was pushing it, it was going to the side of the wall and touching the side of the wall, which has paint on it, which is a conductive paint. So it was good when I was pushing down on it to twist, because I don't have the knobs on it properly yet. I was saying kick, but that's, I know that there's a trick that you can do where you put a plastic business card, put it round and put it underneath the pot so that it completely, so you don't touch the potential metal parts or the conductive parts that are in there with the pot itself, and you know, your ground might push a hot wire onto something while it's moving in there. Take a breath though, and see what I'm like about this stuff. That's why you should subscribe, because I'm not one of those guys that will tell you my opinion that I learned on a message board. I'll have to figure it out for myself first. And this is one of the things I did. I have to thank my father for this, because my father was in a band called Badfinger. They were big in the early 70s and up to the late 70s. And they came out with the British Explosion. They were the first band to be signed to the Beatles label, Apple. And there was a guitar. It was the Gibson SG. I believe it was early 60s, like a 63 or 64. And I hear that guitar on so many of their albums, and I just knew it when I heard it. And there was something special about it. And it had the early Gibson electronics in it. It had the early Gibson pickups in it. And it had, everything else was wrong. It had nylon saddles, plastic saddles. It had a big vibrola, which is just a tuning, you know, nightmare. And it had, I'm not sure if it had a bone nut or plastic nut. And so, you know, plastic, you hear things like this, but it still sounded like magic. And I was obsessed with that single guitar's tone for, you know, most of my life. And then, you know, you start to get into guitars, and I'm all about the EMGs because I was a metalhead and the rest of it. But then I kept on hearing about the Gibson, and when I heard people like Joe Bonamassa and playing the old SGs and the old Les Pauls from the 60s and the late 50s, I heard that sound again. So it was the old T-tops, it was the old P.A.Fs, it was the old Gibson electronics, and I couldn't hear it on any other type of guitar. I couldn't hear it on a PRS. I couldn't hear it on modern Gibsons. So it's more of a, it's like when you're flipping through a book and you see a name, it just springs out at you. If I'm listening to a guitar and I just hear that old Gibson sound. So that's what it's all about, guys. Bit of passion. You know, after playing it, because that was actually the first session I had really playing with the knobs and everything. After it, it was a rush, like endorphins and just a journey, and it's my tone journey, and it's almost up, you know. So now what do I do? Because I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I have a Les Paul that's going to be fitted. It's not a Les Paul, but it's bloody better than this. I've got a 1979 Tokai Les Paul Rebone, which is practically a Les Paul. Probably for the period, for the late 70s, it's actually better than a late 70s Les Paul, because by then they couldn't keep up with demand, and Les Pauls were being made out of like 16 pieces of wood, because it was, and then paint them hastily, you know, because like in '59 they had lots of, you know, it's a long story. So yeah, and what do I have? I have the earliest T-tops that you can have. T-tops were another version of the Gibson pickups. We weren't quite '59, but just slightly afterwards. And I love them already. I've tested one of them out, and it's just beautiful. And I have sourced another pair of Bumblebee caps, and these test perfect. They tested better than these ones, this one, because there's only one in here. And I have the 1959 pots, so you're going to do it all over again on a nice guitar. That's going to take me a while though. Even though this is now the quest I'm on, it still pains me to take apart a stock Tokai Rebone, because there's not many of those around that are as pristine as the one that I have. So, you know, to make an omelette, go crack some eggs. Yeah, so that's it. That was more of a rant than I was hoping it would be more upbeat than that, but then I got all, you know, talk about my dad. But my father died. But there's also with this guy. Let's talk about this. Now, I still needed to get named, by the way. I need a name for this. I was thinking of Sticker Shock, because it's full of stickers, tone stickers. No, they're not. Just in case. Sticker Shock, because there's shocking amount of electronics in there from 1959, Gibson of all eras, and obviously it's full of stickers. But that's not really a name, is it? Is it? See what you can come up with. Try and name this guitar. But I want to get into more nerdiness, because I said it before. The Shock, he's put $1,000 worth plus, because it's more than that, in $80, $90 guitar for clickbait. No, there's actually nerdiness behind it. Think of the most famous rock guitar tone of all time. Probably Eddie Van Halen, the Brahms sound. Eddie Van Halen's, his most famous guitar, his famous sound was a cheap soft body. It was a 1959 Gibson pickup. That pickup was directly screwed into the body. Like mine, I did the same thing, I screwed these in. It was a bolt-on. Remember, cheap, light wood, soft wood. And he went directly to the output jack. He bypassed all the pots. What I have in here is the pure tone jack, which actually gives you a little bit more highs than the regular jack. Not as extreme as going direct and bypassing the pots, but you know, the rest I can get on the amp. So all of those parallels with the most famous sound. Now think about Eddie Van Halen. He has had scientists reverse engineer on a molecular level his old guitar, and he cannot get his sound. He has amp companies, he has guitar companies, he has the best of the best trying to wind his pickups. They cannot recreate his sound. Why? They don't produce that metal anymore. The filament in these pickups, they can't produce it anymore. Half of the stuff they can't produce because it's illegal, because there's man-made materials that you can't generate anymore. The copper was purer back then. These pots were sent, you know, into space. They were designed, you know, they were designed with NASA in mind and things like that. So that is why these things are expensive, because people know. The people who play them know. Joe Bonamassa, I keep on mentioning him. I don't even listen to his stuff. I just love every tone that he gets in a room without the band going and he's demoing his gear, because then I hear that badfinger sound. He doesn't play with all his pots on 10 because he knows, he'll say it, he'll say these old central lab pots, he will have these at 7 or 8 out of 10, both the tone and the volume. That is his regular guitar sound, and then he'll adjust from there. He almost never has them full wide open. So why wouldn't he just get, you know, a pot design that would replicate that? He has everybody bending over backwards to make him stuff, right? He can't get it. He will pay $200,000 for a guitar just to get that. So that's it. So it's passionate stuff, guys. It is a, you know, like I'm anti, you know, when it comes to the actual guitar. Yes, this has, like I say, it has its shortcomings, the neck flexes, because I'm a heavy hitter. So I have to be aware of it, but you can use it as an effect too. This goes straight back into tune, by the way. It was I noticed a few places where it was out of tune. That was more down to action and me getting lost a little bit. I noticed one of the F chords I had was way out, but I was dragging it. So yeah, good stuff, chaps. So yeah, so probably in a month or so, look out for, I'll be doing more things before then, but it's going to be round 2 of proper guitar. Then we'll see the sweetness of the actual wood, because like I say, actually coming through the pickups, tone wood is overrated in my opinion. What you do get from it is obviously acoustically it sounds completely different. If you've got 2 different types of wood, acoustically it's going to sound different. Through the pickups don't really notice the change, but what it does notice is things like glassy, not classy, glassiness is what I call it, and that's more from the fretboard, to be honest. You know, because if you have a better, less of a thick pour, things like that, in the, you know, like an open grain in crappy fretboards like this, which this isn't actually too bad, and they filled it with something, so it does kind of feel glassy-ish. But then the other ones have better frets, and even though I polished and I leveled these, so these are pretty decent, you know. So I'm not going to get it. We'll see. You know, I'll put it up against it. It'll be a good one. Does a 1959 P.A.F. P90 sound as good as the old, I think they called the early Pat sticker T-top Gibson pickups. So we're going to see. And like I say, subscribe, hit the bell, get some, you know, you've been in the circle of tone. Have a good one.